What do we have here, sports fans? Well, we got a basic service on a Norton Commando. This is a bike that I used to own, and the owner wants to sell it, so I figured I'd bring it in for a little service. It's a beautiful bike. There's really no major issues with it at all, even minor issues. I mean, nice chrome. Most everything's been replaced, redone, Coney shocks. Nice paint. With striping, I might add, the whole deal. But you notice, I worked back, well, maybe you wouldn't notice. I worked on these back in the day. They'd come in for a service, and there's a lot of things that owners just don't seem to realize, understand, or otherwise be aware of. One of them is, have a look at your oil tank here. Get the cap off, because of course we're changing the oil. But anyway, this item right here, mount there, and there is a mount up front, same mount, and they look like this when they perish. But you can see it holds the tab, the bracket for the oil tank, and keeps everything from moving around. And if you can grab onto your oil tank and it's steady like that, you're in good shape. But they do perish. They're metal bonded to rubber. Slap it on the bench over here. Move some of our junk out of the way. But here's what the mount looks like in situ. Focus. And you can see it's a chunk of rubber. There's a stud bonded on each end. And I'm going to stop it here and put the camera on the tripod. Okay, here we are back again. This is the new mount right here, and you can see that it's flexible rubber in the middle, well, sort of flexible, and there is a metal piece on each end, bonded. So when you go to tighten it up, put it in the vehicle. Get your nut here. Put it through the tab in the oil tank and mash the whole mess in there. Back up with your wrench here on the metal part when you put the nut on, and fumble around and make it look really hard. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. Put your nut on. When you go to tighten it up with your wrench, make sure you're tightening this fine and dandy, but make sure you're holding that hex. If you just put it in place and tighten the nut up, once it starts to get tension on it, you'll twist the whole thing and put tension on the rubber, and it will fail. So you don't want any stress on this when it's mounted on the bike, or you'll wind up with this. Even if you don't, they don't last forever. So buy the good ones. These are made in the UK, and they're more expensive than the Taiwan mounts, but they do last much longer. So that's a case where false economy to save money. So buy the right unit. So use a wrench, back it up on there. We'll go to the next item. Okay, here we have a really simple thing, the rear brake cable. It's up on the pedal and it works the brake. The cable runs around through here and fish it in through this bracket. There's a gap there. Put it in there, and then it goes up to your rear mount right there. That's what stabilizes it right here, and then you hook it up to your brake linkage. And everything's cool. But if you don't route it this way, it doesn't work right. It'll bind up. So it's a simple thing, but the cable comes up over your Z plate, that up a little bit, through the gap where you mount your passenger footbrake mount, through that gap, and then it lines up perfectly with this rear locator here. And that goes onto your rear cable. It's a simple thing, but if you don't have it right, the rear brake doesn't really work that well, so just one of those things to look at. Okay, here's another item. This bike came in here and the exhaust was so loose it was ready to fall off. And here's why. Here's your, let's get the camera a little bit, okay. Norton Commando engine moves around with the exhaust, and it's rubber mounted to keep everything from breaking. But when you put your rose nut on here. You got your flange. Sometimes you need more than one washer in there to take up the distance. Not all Commando heads were drilled to the same depth, so this is basically a 750 style nut, but it really doesn't make any difference. The thing is, you want to put these in the head, and then when you screw the nut in, make sure that it takes up all the slack. But sometimes you need more than one. Here's your lock tab, and we'll put the thing back in for a demo, and you can have a look. I'm going to stop it right here. Okay, so we got basically a total of 3 of those crush washers. Say that three times fast. These are custom nuts. Yeah, that's what I told her anyway. Another story. Anyway, you want this tight. See how that flops around loosely? But it doesn't take much. Even by hand, I can take all the slop out of that. Makes a big difference. Make sure the nut isn't bottomed out. Then you have your special Norton tool. Just a piece of steel that hooks on there and tighten it up. You want to make sure they're really tight. Check and make sure that pipe is really solid on there, because if it isn't and that nut works loose, it chews up the threads inside there, and you're looking at an expensive job to get that rethreaded. So just something to pay attention to. Make sure the nut isn't bottomed out in the head. Sometimes you got to use a couple of washers, and you use your lock tabs. This here, you put this end in, fits into the head here, onto the fins, and then you take this tab here, I can't see because of my camera mount, but this tab here gets bent into this fin. So the fins get, this tab, end of the tab gets fit into here, the other end goes into the head, and it keeps the nut from unscrewing, keeps it from backing off. It works really well, probably better than safety wire. So, but as long as you got something to keep them from loosening up. And then take your tool and check this every once in a while after you've ridden the bike for a while, because they do loosen up. Anyway, if you don't have it tight and you ride the bike, these are the old washers that came out. Probably pretty hard to tell, but it's kind of destroyed. It's just chewed itself into nothing, and it makes it even worse. And here's the original. That's the stock one. And this what was in there. It was just a chewed up piece of crap, basically. So anyway, the point is, put enough of these washers in to take up any slack, and you'll be fine. Tighten it up good and solid with the special tool. And they're not real expensive, but you really need it. So there you go. There's a few tuning tips on servicing your Norton. Thanks for watching, and if you're born to hang, you won't drown.